half a dozen years ago. Welcome back to the channel, by the way. In the fish room here now, and I can tell you about half a dozen years ago when I got back into this, having not been in it for quite a while, but there were these shrimp that showed up, little shrimps for aquariums. They weren't around 20 years ago, and here they are, but they're little. I get to see these little cherry ones in there, if you can see them on the bottom. Cherry shrimp. A whole boatload of them in there. I bought 4 of them from the fish store, 2 males and 2 females. 1 male and 1 female died right away. The other 2, though, went on to have babies. So there's, you can tell by looking at them, there's 3 different sizes in there, so there were 3 different batches. And there's probably, I don't know, 50, 60 shrimp in there right now. There's real tiny ones you can't really see very well, but then there's some of the red ones that you can see moving around. And the first ones that hatched are of a size now where they could actually reproduce themselves. Cherry shrimp. Oh, there comes a guy. Some of them are more red than the others for some reason. Kind of fun to watch. I'm going to throw some food in there, though. Well, they're pretty active right now, so I don't need to do anything. But if they're not very active, I toss a little food in there, then they'll really start moving around, and they'll probably do something anyway. They kind of like to have a little bite to eat in the afternoon. They always say these shrimp could just about live on their own without getting any food because they live on microscopic stuff in there, but tell you what, they sure do a lot better when you feed them. They grow better and look nicer, they have a deeper color. So they just look better when you feed them. So anyway, cherry shrimp. Who knew? They're kind of fun. These are kind of easy to care for. You need to watch out though. The little young ones that they have are like a little hors d'oeuvre for fish. So if you're breeding them, I wouldn't. I guess there's a couple of different fish you can keep with them that won't bother them, but when they're adults, though, when they're bigger, then they, like guppies and stuff like that, they'll usually leave them alone. I've had them with them. You can put them with some other fish too that are a little more, mellow in there when these things get big. But when those little shrimp are small, boy, they're a little tasty treat for those fish. So if you're trying to raise anyway, don't keep them with other fish. This is an example too. These guys shed a shell quite frequently. I see the discarded shell in there as they move into their next size. These would be those that would be harmed by RO, soft water, rainwater, because they do need that mineral in that water to help with their shell. And you just saw a real tiny one go by there. There's some in there that are really, really tiny. Anyway, you can see that in the in the world of keeping aquariums, I've got a Menards little miniature bucket in there. Well, you kind of try to find whatever you can and make use of stuff. I like to have live plants in the aquariums. They don't always do so good in this hard water, but I try to keep some live plants in the tanks. So anyway, that's the cherry shrimp. I think in a little bit here we'll move on and do a water change on some little baby guppy tank one tank that I got here that I got to get cleaned up, so we'll do that. These are some little baby guppies. I think I got about 20 of them in here for frame of reference. Here's my finger. So you can see they're still pretty small. They grow pretty fast though, especially if you feed them right. So I had one female in there Might have been another one too that had some on that time, but I got about 20 of them in that particular little group. So I'll show you the birthing tank here at some point too. So these guys, though, they eat like a horse now. Some of the males are starting to get colored out a little bit there. You can see one guy here will be a male, almost assuredly. So some of the colors are coming out. There's another one right there too. Some colors are coming a little bit on them, but they're pretty young yet. Hope you can see that all right. Seems to be focused pretty good. Anyway, that's what's going on there. Now we're going to just kind of take a moment here and do a little cleanup on this tank. Sometimes, sorry to be in the way, sometimes when you're raising babies like this, because you got to put so much food in there, I wonder if I could position this a little differently. Get you in off this one side might work out a little better, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, but because of the amount of food that you got to feed them if you want them to grow and get nice size, there's two things. You got to feed them pretty regularly, 3-4 times a day, even some good food, fill them up. And then water changes, fresh water. Size of a tank is important too. You got to have some room to move around. First thing I'm going to do though before I change water on this one is, and I'm going to suck out the junk from the bottom too. I got to get a razor blade. Can't pick it in. I cut my nails today. I can't pick anything up. There we go. I could not pick that thing up. I got it there. Anyway. By the way, you might notice that I don't use any substrate in there, and that's because I'm feeding so much and having to clean so often that if I had gravel down there or something, it'd just harbor all that stuff and it would create bad conditions. So we get in here and we use a razor blade on the bottom. This is a couple of things here, largely beneficial bacteria that's cultured on the bottom here, and then there's probably also there's a little parasitic worm that hangs around inside it. Some of these tubifex cubes that you get, imagine that's where it comes from. Little tiny worms. Not a big deal, just unsightly. But they're on the bottom, you can't really even see them. But I do kind of like getting rid of them. Anyway, so I'm just probably blocking off everything you can see here, but using the razor blade to clean the tank on the bottom. I'm mostly worried about the bottom. And again, these aren't tanks that I'm using to show fish. I'm raising fish. People have different things they do with the aquariums. Some like to build up real cool, real cool environments, and that's great. That's not what I do, but some do. And that's good too. Alright, so we have to give this a little bit of time here. You might notice that I have, you can see them over in this tank too, I get snails all over. They're important. They do a good job of helping to keep things cleaned up there. Alright, well I gotta let that settle down a little bit before I clean it out of there. I made it back. Looks like she's about ready for me to get her out of there. Now, hang on a second. All right, I think we can do her. Here's what I use. I've got about, what is that, a half inch maybe hose. I don't know if it's a half or not, but something like that. And then I've got a Amazon. It's a rod that I was able to stick into there. It allows me to clean up tanks like this rather easily. Just by starting the siphon, and I gotta worry about catching fish. That's the only thing. They want to get in here and... Oh, I didn't just send one, did I? Hope not. I get them out of there, but it's not good for them to ride through that hose. I've had a couple of instances where it didn't pan out very good at all. This excess material will help to bring the nitrates down. The nitrates aren't terrible for the fish. They are in a large quantity, but sometimes they can get kind of big in these environments here. And let's see, there I basically just have siphoned out all that junk is out. I was saying before, I have some big snails in there. You wouldn't believe they create quite a bit of waste themselves. Alright, let's see if I accidentally siphoned a fish. I don't think I did. Can't see them in there. Anybody in there? No, I don't see anybody. Good. Like I say, I don't like to siphon them through there. You remember this from the first episode, I'm sure. Got a new handle on that bucket. Ooh, doggy. That's a dandy there. Yeah, that's nice. That's the little things in life, you know. Like a good handle on your bucket. All right, we need some water here. 20% water change, that's a rule. So we got a 10-gallon tank here, so a couple of gallons. I think I probably take out a little bit more than that, but it kind of depends a little bit too on, if you got aged water, it's good. Chlorine's out of it. And then also if you're using a water conditioner, if the temperature's pretty close, you could probably get away with a 30% and not have too much trouble. Especially if you just fed them too. Or if right after you do this you feed them some of their favorite food, that will make them forget about their trouble. I think this would be a couple of gallons. I swear every time I do this I see them grow about 1/8 of an inch the next day. They just really respond nicely to water changes. And that's the whole goal here, is getting these guys to grow. So those babies are about 4 weeks old, by the way. Somewhere right in there, 4 to 5 weeks. But before I take them to the pet store, they'll be lots bigger and older, of course. They'll probably be about 4 to 5 months old when I take them to the pet store. Fish store, aquarium store. Alright, so that's all we need to do on that one. We just got to get some fresh water in there. So these, oops, I got to get their plant back though. Probably more of a thing on me than anything, where I think they need a little something in there to break up their monotony of their day, so I throw a plastic plant in there. Give them something to do. Because otherwise all they do all day long is swim around and look for food. Fish want to eat all day long. And they would if I gave them food. They'd eat until they couldn't swim. So there you are. See, that tank's good to go now for a week. And I'll be pumping some pretty serious food in there. But they do a pretty good job beating it up, and then I got some pretty good sized snails. I don't know if you can see the one on the bottom over here, but this guy down in here. Come on out a second. And then you let go. Can you let go? There you go. There you are. It's a big old ram's horn snail. I don't know if you can see him or not. I'm probably moving around too much, but he's a big old guy. He's an old guy. Well, we got a whole bunch of them in this tank, too. They do a good job of cleaning up. Gotta have them in there. But they produce waste, too, so that's kind of interesting. But this tank over here, by the way, is a 55-gallon tank, but this is the first one that I had before I had any others. And then I got the 20-gallon longs, and I set them up over here. One day I'm looking at this tank, and it was full of water. And I don't know if you can see that as good as the other. Maybe I got to reposition this camera a little bit, but probably not. Anyway, I could see that the side of this tank had bowed way out. I'm going, whoa, baby. She looked like she was ready to go. So there's a little brace here that had given way. And so it quickly drained half of the water. That took all the pressure off of it and went back to its normal dimension. So now what I use it for is just for raising out guppies in it. And I keep it about half full. Then it doesn't bother that brace up there. And I grow some plants in there too. Like I say, it's terrible in this hard water to grow plants, but trying it again here on these Amazons. When I buy them, they're so nice. And then they just turn crappy here. I gotta get some rainwater back and get a tank sent with good water and see if I can't get them going better, but anyway. So that's what that 55 is for, raising out guppies. And when there's a lot of them in there, it's kind of fun. We'll go over and look at some that I'm getting ready to take to the store here pretty soon. This is a 60-gallon tank. Right now I got about, I don't know how many are in here, quite a few. Probably 50 or 60 little guppies. Well, these are now about, these are 4 to 5 months old, somewhere in there probably. See if I can get them to come down a little. Come down here, you guys. Anyway, there's a whole boatload of them there. They're looking for something to eat. Probably could throw a little flake food in there for them. They're worse than dogs and begging for food, I'm telling you. And their bellies are big. So, I know. It's not like they're starving. They just want to eat. Come on, you guys. Belly up. I'll throw some plate food in here. They'll start falling. They'll start going after it. Give a little better shot there. I gotta get a background on my tanks, then you can see the fish better. But again, I'm just raising fish to. I mean, the real fun part of it is that to see what the males are going to be looking like once I get them out of there. Kind of hard to get these guys to sit still here, but I have a certain look of my males on a bunch of them that doesn't even come from any that I bought. So it's something that I kind of developed. It's these guys with the half black, red tails. I never even had one that I bought that looked like that. But now I have a lot of those. And a bunch of other type too. You know, I made a mistake one time of getting an Endler guppy, which is a smaller guppy. And years ago that one wasn't available in the trade either, but they have them now. It's another variation of guppy they discovered out there. And boy, that little male that I had, my goodness, he dated everybody in the tank. And his genes, I can see him all over the place, but starting to get him out of there now a little bit. I got to send him back to the store and get rid of him. Trying to isolate that look out of him now. He's just a little bit too small. The fish are so small. Whatever you see in there for real tiny fish is probably an inler guppy relative. Sometimes too I get into second generation fish, and those are ones that commonly have genetic defects. This is where the part of fish husbandry gets difficult kind of, because nobody will take those, and you get a number of them and you can't keep them all. So the best way is to put them to sleep real gradually in the freezer. They just kind of go to sleep. They don't even feel anything. But that's probably the best way, most humane. They're deformed and stuff, and they won't live good lives otherwise. It's a tough part about keeping fish. Everybody has to go through it, especially if you're breeding and raising fish. I use a lot of oxygenation in there. That helps to move nitrogen out of the water too. Nitrogen's at the end of the nitrogen cycle, which we're going to talk about one day here. I'll try to make it real plain and simple, letting you know what's going on inside these tanks, so you understand why you need water changes and to watch stuff. But anyway, when you have a lot of oxygen rolling through there, that does help to pull bad gases out of the water. Plus the fish need good oxygen to breathe, so it helps with that too. Oxygen is transferring into the water anywhere the water is meeting the surface. Well, there's surface area on the bubbles that are coming up, so there's a huge amount of surface area there, so it's transferring a lot of oxygen into the water. This particular tank we're looking at, I have 2 sponge filters on it and 2 power filters on it, which is probably way over, but I only do that because I keep a lot of fish in there, too many fish, for what would probably be there. People this is a 60-gallon tank here. Many people having a tank like this would probably decorate it all up and have it all, set real neat. I just throw a few things in there to look at, but it's mostly meant for raising fish. And it's a big tank, a lot of water. Got to have a lot of filtration for all these fish I put in here. And I can tell when they're in good shape because they're all happy. The fins are up. They're looking for food. Everybody's good. These guys get regular water changes and filter cleaning too. Today, though, I won't be doing any of the filters today. Probably just the water changes. But one day here coming out real soon, the sponge filter, well, all the filters that are in there, I have to clean them also about once a week or once every other week for sure. So that's what's going on there. The guppies are kind of fun. The little baby tiny guppies are just all right. I got some brand new ones just born here the other day. I better see if I can get them on the camera here. Hang on. Well, if you look carefully, you can see little things swimming in there inside of that net thing. And those are little 2 or 3 day old guppies. There's some in there that are about 5 to 7 days old too, but I had a couple of them. This is what I call the cow tank here, you might say. These are the guppies that are going to have babies. I probably got, I don't know how many females in there. Come on up, girls. Yeah, I've got one sitting up over in the weeds here too, which means she's probably the one that's had baby. There were some new ones in there yesterday and early today. She's probably the one doing that. Matter of fact, I'll see if we can, without disturbing her too much. If you look down over into the green part over there, you'll see a guppy sitting there. Oh, there she's up against the glass camera now. But she's isolating herself away from everybody. And that means she's having babies. But they're all these girls in here are all pretty pregnant. There's a couple of them have given birth now, so I'll be isolating them. I don't know, the babies are moving around pretty good now, if you can see them. They're kind of cool. And when they're born, by the way, I don't know if you can see the texture of this net or not, but those babies swim through the little holes that are in this net to get into this trap thing here so the big ones won't eat them. They literally swim through them little tiny holes. And I always figure any of them that don't make it in there, they would have been the ones that would have probably been eaten up in the wild anyway. So this way it kind of weeds out any of the weak ones too. We get just strong babies that can get their way into there. So that kind of helps to weed out some of the stuff that's not so strong. So that female's right back up in here, and I can tell that she's been having babies because she's a lot thinner. Sometimes these adult fish wait around in here for the girls to have babies, and they try to eat up whatever they can. But usually the babies, when they're first born, man, they can take off and they can elude those adults pretty good. So anyway, that's that tank. Geez, I almost got a half an hour on this one here. I'll probably have to post this, and then we'll figure out what's going on later. See ya.